One moment, she was a teenage mom in Memphis. A few years later, she's in Playboy and starring in a Jerry Lewis hit. What happened in between? Everything Hollywood didn't want you to see. From Memphis to the studio lot. She was born Estelle Eggleston in 1938 in Yazoo City, Mississippi. Her family moved to Memphis when she was 4. She grew up in a working-class home, raised mostly by her mother. By 15, she was already grabbing attention with her looks. At 16, she dropped out of high school and got married. By 17, she had a son, Andrew Stevens, who'd later become an actor himself. The marriage didn't last. She filed for divorce not long after giving birth. While raising her son alone, she went back to school, earning a spot at Memphis State College. That's when things started to shift. She joined theater groups, posed for local photographers, and entered beauty contests to earn extra cash. One of her photos landed in the right hands. Columbia Pictures noticed. She was offered a screen test. Not long after, she moved to Los Angeles. Columbia changed her name to Stella Stevens, something they thought sounded more glamorous. Her first film was Say One for Me in 1959, a musical comedy starring Bing Crosby and Debbie Reynolds. Stella had a small part, but she made it count. Critics didn't rave, but they noticed her. So did the Golden Globes. She won Most Promising Newcomer in 1960. That same year, she posed for Playboy, and suddenly everyone knew her name. The photos showed a bold side. She wasn't playing the shy starlet. She leaned into the attention, and it paid off. By the end of 1959, she had signed a contract with 20th Century Fox, then quickly moved to Columbia. Studios were fighting over her. They saw the potential, and they saw dollar signs. But behind the fame, she was still a young single mom from Memphis trying to navigate a brutal business. And she was just getting started. Studios' new Blonde Bombshell. In January 1960, Playboy dropped a centerfold that got everyone talking. Stella Stevens wasn't just featured, she was front and center, fully confident, fully in control. The photos weren't shy or coy, they were bold. That issue became one of the year's biggest sellers, and overnight, Stella became a sensation. But this wasn't a mistake or a fluke. Stella wanted the spotlight. She knew Hollywood liked its women, blonde, curvy, and quiet, but she had other plans. The Playboy spread caught the eye of Columbia Pictures. They moved fast and signed her to a long-term contract. She became their next big project, their answer to Marilyn Monroe, except louder, funnier, and more defiant. Columbia wasted no time pushing her into the public eye. She showed up at premieres, posed for pinups, and gave interviews that raised eyebrows. When asked about her image, she didn't sugarcoat it. "I'm not the girl next door," she said. "I'm the girl across the hall with the open door." That line stuck, and it made studio heads nervous, but fans loved it. She started landing small roles in B-movies and low-budget comedies. None of them were Oscar material, but she stood out in every scene. Even when the scripts were weak, she gave them energy. She wasn't afraid to play brash, funny, or even a little vulgar, and that made her different. Critics didn't know what to do with her. Some wrote her off as just another blonde in a tight dress. Others saw the potential, but didn't think she'd last. Behind the scenes, though, she was hustling. She studied acting with top coaches and worked hard to sharpen her skills. She wanted more than cheesecake poses and walk-on parts. By 1962, her roles were getting bigger. She was no longer just a model-turned-actress. She was starting to prove she could actually hold her own, and she hadn't even hit her peak yet. Career on the brink. In 1963, Stella landed the role that would define her, Stella Purdy in The Nutty Professor. It was a Jerry Lewis comedy, wild, goofy, over the top, and it became a box office hit. But Stella wasn't just there for eye candy. She gave the film balance. Where Lewis went big, she pulled things back. Calm, smart, cool, and funny without trying too hard. Audiences noticed. So did casting directors. For the first time, Stella had a leading role that showed more than skin. She wasn't playing the ditzy blonde or the bedroom punchline. She had timing, presence. She could play off a comedic genius and still own her scenes. And she looked stunning doing it. The role boosted her profile fast. Suddenly, she was everywhere: television talk shows, movie magazines, red carpet events. The Nutty Professor wasn't just a comedy hit, it made her a household name. But even with all that momentum, she could feel the box they were building around her. Scripts kept coming in, scripts with roles labeled Sexy Secretary, Hot Nurse, Showgirl Number 2. She started turning them down. She wanted depth, but the studios weren't offering it. Jerry Lewis, who directed and starred in The Nutty Professor, later said she was a dream to work with, professional and sharp. But others in the industry weren't as generous. Directors labeled her difficult when she asked for better lines. Producers said she was too opinionated. Translation, she wouldn't play dumb, and that made them nervous. Stella's relationship with Hollywood was already starting to crack, even as her star was rising. She wasn't going to be molded into someone else's version of fame. And in a studio system that preferred obedient blondes, that made her a risk. But she didn't back off. She leaned in harder, refusing to go soft for the cameras or quiet for the bosses. And it wasn't long before that resistance would start showing in the roles she picked next. Typecast, teased and tired of it. After The Nutty Professor, the offers kept coming, but most of them were the same. Sexy sidekick, flirty distraction, that blonde in the background. Stella took some of those roles because she had to work, but each one left her more frustrated. She starred in films like Advance to the Rear, The Courtship of Eddie's Father, and Synanon. These movies gave her more screen time, but not more substance. Her characters were flashy, but they lacked depth. No arcs, no agency, just outfits and one-liners. Even when the scripts were decent, the camera always lingered on her body more than her face. Off camera, Stella was getting louder about it. She didn't hide her annoyance in interviews. She slammed producers who wrote flat women characters and called out directors who only cared about her figure. Columbia started to pull back. They didn't like her tone. She didn't play the PR game. She skipped press events. She wanted better roles, not more promo shots. She started doing television, guest spots on shows like Ben Casey, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and Bonanza. On television, she had more room to act. She didn't have to be the joke. She could be tough, smart, even unlikable. That's what she wanted, range. But by 1966, she was exhausted. She had the looks, the talent, and the credits, but still felt stuck. And she wasn't the only one noticing. A Variety column around this time described her as underused and underestimated, a sharp actress in a dull system. She knew if she didn't change direction soon, she'd be stuck as a footnote in someone else's movie. So she started pushing harder, looking beyond the typical starlet track. And the next chapter? That's when things finally started to shift. Breaking the mold and burning bridges. By the late 60s, Stella Stevens had it. She was done with being Hollywood's pin-up puppet. The tight dresses, empty roles, fake smiles, none of it interested her anymore. She didn't want to be decoration. She wanted to be taken seriously. She started saying no a lot. Sexy nurse, number flirty barmaid, hard pass. Directors didn't like it. They called her difficult, a label thrown at any woman who asked for more than screen time in a swimsuit. But Stella didn't care. She was chasing different roles, ones with teeth. She took on The Mad Room in 1969, a dark psychological thriller where she played a troubled woman with secrets. It didn't make headlines, but it gave her something new, a character with layers. In Rage, she starred opposite Glenn Ford, playing a grounded, serious nurse in a drama about toxic waste exposure. It was far from glamorous, but that was the point. She also dove into theater work and low-budget indies, not for fame, but for freedom. At this point, she had no agent filtering offers. She didn't want a studio shaping her career. She wanted full control, even if it meant losing the spotlight. While other actresses fought to stay in the tabloids, Stella quietly walked away from the machine. In interviews, she didn't hold back. She blasted the industry for treating women like props. "I'm not a prop," she said. "I'm a person, write me that way." She criticized male directors who couldn't see past her looks and praised female artists trying to tell honest stories. She wasn't just stepping outside the box, she was tearing it apart. By 1971, the work had slowed, not because she was forgotten, but because she wasn't playing along. She could have faded out completely. But instead, her next role would put her back on top, and no one saw it coming. The power of going raw. Stella walked onto the set of the Poseidon Adventure with something to prove. She wasn't there to be pretty. She wasn't there to flirt. She was there to be real. She played Linda Rogo, a brash former escort married to a grumpy cop, played by Ernest Borgnine. Their arguments weren't cute. They were raw, bitter, and believable. Linda was messy, loud, and unpredictable. And for the first time in years, Stella didn't try to soften it. She wore no fancy costumes. Her hair was a sweaty mess. Her makeup was gone by the first act. But she was magnetic. In a cast full of stars, she stood out not because she was glamorous, but because she felt alive, real, human. The shoot wasn't easy. The production was physically demanding. Actors were soaking wet, climbing metal debris, working in water tanks for hours. Stella fought for her character, even clashing with director Ronald Neame. She wanted Linda to have more depth, more than just a tragic past or a shrill voice. And in the end, she made it work. The film was a smash hit. Released in 1972, the Poseidon Adventure pulled in over $100 million. It became a genre-defining disaster film. Audiences cried during Linda's death scene, where she sacrifices herself for the group. It was gutting, and it was Stella's best work. Critics praised her. The New York Times called her unexpectedly moving. For once, the headlines weren't about her looks, they were about her acting. It felt like validation, and it gave her new momentum. But even after that success, Hollywood didn't offer her much better. The industry didn't know what to do with a sex symbol who refused to stay silent. Stella knew that role would be hard to top, but she didn't care about topping it. She had made her mark, and she did it on her terms. No one wanted her in. After the Poseidon Adventure, Stella Stevens could have coasted on disaster flick fame. Instead, she changed direction completely. Hollywood wasn't offering real roles, so she decided to make her own. She wanted to direct. In the 1970s, that wasn't just rare, it was practically unheard of for a woman. She started small. Stella studied directing and script development. She watched how sets ran. She learned camera setups, blocking, lighting, everything studios assumed she'd never understand. Men laughed her off. Some openly told her to stay in front of the camera. She didn't listen. In 1979, she directed her first short, The American Heroine. It didn't get distribution, but it gave her proof. She knew she could do it. A decade later, she directed a made-for-television movie called The Ranch. The story followed women working in a legal brothel in Nevada, raw, smart, and female-centered. Critics were split, but the film sparked conversation. Stella didn't care about awards. She cared about saying something. She also started directing television. In the 80s, she helmed episodes of shows like Hotel. Again, it wasn't easy. Producers questioned her decisions. Crews second-guessed her. Still, she kept going. She wasn't flashy behind the camera. She was steady, prepared, tough. Stella also supported other women trying to break in. She mentored younger actresses, gave behind-the-scenes advice, and publicly backed female directors in interviews. She was blunt. If you're waiting for a man to hand you a camera, you'll wait forever. The film industry barely acknowledged her work. She never got a big-budget gig. She didn't land a breakout hit as a director. But she made it happen anyway. In a time when most actresses faded out by 40, Stella was reinventing herself, again. Not with tabloid drama or a comeback tour, with craft, with grit. And while the press stopped calling, she was far from done making noise. Love on her terms. Over the years, two long-term relationships stood out, one with actor Skip Ward and another with rock guitarist and producer Bob Kulick. Sources have mentioned a connection between Stella and Skip Ward starting in the 1960s. He was a fellow actor and occasional producer, and their names were linked on and off for years, but details are limited. They never married, rarely appeared in public as a couple, and gave no joint interviews. Some friends said the relationship was real but rocky, hot, cold, and always complicated. Others say it was never official. What's clear is this: Skip was part of her story, whether the press covered it or not. But the relationship that truly lasted came later. In 1983, Stella began dating Bob Kulick, a musician best known for his work with Kiss, Meat Loaf, and Lou Reed. Kulick wasn't part of Hollywood's film scene, but he understood the industry grind. They stayed together for nearly 37 years, longer than most celebrity marriages. They didn't do red carpets, they didn't chase headlines, but behind closed doors, they built a quiet, committed partnership. Friends described them as close and loyal. Bob often supported Stella during the periods when she stepped away from acting and focused on real estate. She backed him as he moved through the music world, touring, producing, and building a career that spanned decades. They stayed together until Bob's death in 2020. He died of heart disease at age 70. Stella never spoke publicly about the loss. By then, her Alzheimer's had already progressed. But those close to her said Bob's passing hit hard. Stella never remarried after her first short-lived marriage as a teen. She didn't need to. Her relationships were on her terms low-profile, long-lasting, and private. No press releases, no big reveals, just connection. Hollywood often wrote headlines about who stars loved. Stella never gave them that satisfaction. She loved the way she lived, on her terms, with the volume down and the door mostly closed. Fame fades, but the fire doesn't. By the 1990s, she had stepped away from the spotlight, not because she couldn't get roles, but because she didn't want the ones being offered. Hollywood had a short memory for women over 40, even shorter for women who didn't play the game. She didn't complain. She pivoted. Stella bought a ranch in Beverly Hills and started flipping real estate. She had a sharp eye for design, a good business sense, and zero patience for Hollywood's ageist nonsense. While other former stars chased guest spots, she was remodeling homes and building a quiet fortune. Still, she stayed close to the industry. She appeared in a few indie films and television shows, but only when the roles felt worth it. She wasn't chasing attention. She never did. If anything, she seemed relieved to be off the red carpet. In one interview from the early 2000s, she joked, "I traded heels for house keys, and I don't miss the heels." Stella also supported her son, Andrew Stevens, as his career took off. He became a successful actor, then a producer and director. They weren't flashy about their relationship, but the respect was clear. She had raised him mostly on her own. Now he was holding his own in the business that never quite knew what to do with his mother. She still gave interviews now and then, and when she did, she didn't hold back. She talked about how women were treated in the 60s, how looks were currency, how she'd been underestimated at every stage. But she wasn't bitter, just blunt. She also stayed active in women's rights circles. She spoke at events. She mentored younger women. She used her story not as a cautionary tale, but as proof that you could survive Hollywood without losing yourself. Stella didn't vanish. She just walked away before the cameras told her to. And while the press stopped calling, her voice stayed sharp, her humor stayed dry, and her defiance never dimmed. The final act behind closed doors. In the 2010 S, Stella Stevens disappeared from public life. She hadn't been in a major film in years, and fans began to wonder where she'd gone. The truth was private and painful. Stella had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. As the illness progressed, she was moved to a long-term care facility in Los Angeles. Her son, Andrew, stayed close, helping manage her affairs and keeping her life as peaceful as possible. Friends visited, but only a few. She didn't want the cameras back. She didn't want pity. In the early years of her illness, she could still speak, still laugh, still crack a joke. But slowly, the disease took that too. By the late 2010, she was no longer able to give interviews. She stopped appearing in public altogether. News of her condition didn't break until much later. The headlines were quiet. There was no media circus, no dramatic farewell. Just a short wave of online posts from old fans and film buffs, wondering how she was doing and why no one seemed to notice she was gone. She died on the 17th of February, 2023, at the age of 84. Her son confirmed the news. No scandals, no chaos. Just a simple statement. His mother had passed after a long illness. Obituaries called her a Hollywood icon and one of the greats of the 60s, but they barely touched what made her different. She wasn't famous for being perfect, she was famous for pushing back. For being too loud, too bold, too much for the men who wanted her quiet. Stella didn't get the statues or the late career tributes, but she got something better. She lived her entire life on her terms. Before Gal Gadot donned the cape, one woman defined superhero perfection, Lynda Carter. But what was it about her that captivated men in the 70s and still does today? Let's go back to where it all began. Early life and unlikely beginnings. Lynda Carter was born on July 24, 1951 in Phoenix, Arizona. She was the youngest of 5 kids in a family that thrived on music and storytelling. Her dad, Colby, was a World War II vet turned businessman, while her mom, Juana, brought a vibrant Mexican heritage to their home. Juana's lessons on resilience and the value of family stuck with Lynda for life. From the start, Lynda turned heads. Her tall frame and natural poise made her stand out, but it was her charm that left everyone talking. At just 5, she made her TV debut on a local show. Confident and composed, she was a natural performer. Her family saw her spark and cheered her on, giving her the freedom to explore her creativity. By her teens, Lynda was diving into every opportunity to perform. School plays gave her a chance to shine on stage, while her love for music led her to join a band called Just Us. Singing lead vocals, she performed at small gigs around Phoenix, building her stage presence and confidence. These moments weren't just hobbies, they were shaping her future. After high school, Lynda took a conventional route and enrolled at Arizona State University. But the call of the spotlight was too strong. By her second year, she dropped out to join a band playing in Las Vegas. This leap was bold, but it marked the start of something big. Vegas was a crash course in showbiz. Lynda learned to own the stage and navigate the hustle of the entertainment world. It wasn't all glitz. There were grueling hours and fierce competition. But instead of backing down, Lynda soaked it all in. She knew success wasn't just about talent. It took grit, hustle, and adaptability. By the early 70s, Lynda was ready for more. She moved to California, chasing dreams of acting and music. Auditions came with rejections, and she took on odd jobs to pay the bills. Waiting tables, teaching vocal lessons, and anything else to stay afloat. Each no pushed her closer to a yes. Lynda's early years were all about perseverance. She didn't let the struggles define her. Instead, she kept going, convinced her breakthrough was around the corner. That determination would soon turn her into an icon, beauty queen to national spotlight. In 1972, Lynda Carter made a bold move that changed everything. Representing Arizona, she entered the Miss World USA pageant. At 5'9", with undeniable charm and stunning features, she was impossible to overlook. But it wasn't just her looks that wowed the judges. When Lynda performed a vocal number during the talent portion, she stole the show. Her victory wasn't just a win, it was a launch pad to fame. Being crowned Miss World USA catapulted Lynda into the national spotlight. Soon after, she jetted off to London to compete in the global Miss World competition. Against fierce international contenders, her elegance and confidence carried her to the semi-finals. While she didn't take the crown, she left a lasting impression on audiences and judges alike, proving she had more than just a title to offer. Back home, Lynda's pageant success opened new doors. Modeling agencies lined up to sign her, and she began landing contracts in the fashion world. But Lynda wasn't content with just posing for the camera. Modeling was a means to an end. Her real dream was acting, and she knew it was time to chase it. Determined to make it big, Lynda moved to Los Angeles. While modeling helped pay the bills, she focused on preparing for a career on screen. To sharpen her skills, she studied acting with Charles Conrad, a renowned coach known for pushing actors to find authenticity. These classes gave Lynda the tools to turn her natural talent into real star power. By 1974, her efforts started to bear fruit. Lynda snagged small roles in TV shows like Nakoma and Starsky and Hutch. The parts weren't flashy, but they showed off her range and on-screen charisma. Casting directors took notice, recognizing her as more than just a beauty queen. Lynda's pageant background gave her an edge in Hollywood. She understood the importance of presence and grace. But she also knew that looks alone wouldn't carry her far. Armed with ambition and growing talent, she was ready for her breakout moment. And it was coming sooner than anyone expected. The audition that changed everything. The mid-1970s brought Lynda Carter her defining moment. After years of small TV roles and commercials, she got the chance of a lifetime, an audition for Wonder Woman. ABC needed a fresh face to play the Amazonian superhero. The stakes were high. The character was already iconic in the DC Comics world, and the show's success depended on finding someone who could bring her to life. The audition wasn't easy. Producers were looking for the full package: strength, intelligence, and humor, all wrapped in charm. The role demanded an actress who could tackle action sequences and stunts while staying true to the character's grace. Lynda's combination of beauty, poise, and acting chops gave her an edge. Her background in pageants and performance didn't hurt either. Lynda later said she felt a connection to the character the moment she stepped into the room. "I just knew Wonder Woman was me," she recalled. That confidence shone through. After countless callbacks and screen tests, she landed the role of Diana Prince, the Amazonian princess destined to save the world. Filming started in 1975, and Lynda dove into the role head first. She worked closely with stunt teams and even performed many of her own stunts, proving her dedication. She helped shape the iconic costume too, collaborating with designers on the red, white, and blue outfit, complete with tiara and bulletproof bracelets. From the first episode, Lynda's portrayal clicked with audiences. She gave Wonder Woman a depth that made her more than a superhero. Her mix of strength, compassion, and humor made Diana Prince relatable and real. Fans were hooked. Men especially admired her blend of beauty and power, while women saw her as a symbol of independence and courage. Behind the scenes, Lynda earned the respect of everyone she worked with. Her upbeat attitude and professionalism kept morale high during long shoots. When Wonder Woman premiered, it became an instant hit. The show redefined superhero TV, and Lynda Carter became a household name. Wonder Woman had found its perfect match, and so had her fans, redefining the superhero image. Lynda Carter's Wonder Woman premiered on November 7, 1975, and took television by storm. Strong, independent female leads were rare at the time, but Lynda's portrayal broke the mold. She played a superhero who wasn't just powerful but also compassionate, radiating warmth alongside her strength. For many men, she was the perfect blend of beauty, charm, and toughness. A hero who could battle villains and still remain approachable. The first season set the show in World War II. Diana Prince worked as a U.S. intelligence secretary by day and secretly fought Nazis by night. Lynda brought depth to the role, making Diana intelligent and resourceful. As Wonder Woman, she was fearless, confident, and unwavering in her sense of justice. Whether deflecting bullets with her bracelets or wielding the golden lasso, Lynda gave the character a relatable humanity that struck a chord with viewers of all ages. In the second season, the setting jumped to modern-day America. The shift didn't faze Lynda's performance. She tackled the role with the same dedication, showing Diana balancing contemporary life with her superhero duties. Her physicality became even more central. Lynda performed many of her own stunts, from choreographed fights to complex action scenes. She trained rigorously to make Wonder Woman's feats look effortless, adding a layer of realism to the role. The costume became a symbol in its own right. With its red bodice, star-spangled blue shorts, and gold accents, the outfit stood out as a bold tribute to American values. Lynda's athletic build and commanding presence elevated it from campy to iconic. Men admired its daring design, but it was Lynda's confidence that made it unforgettable. The show's success turned Lynda into a cultural phenomenon. She graced magazine covers, appeared on talk shows, and became a symbol of empowerment. Even people unfamiliar with comic books were captivated by her charisma. Lynda Carter didn't just play Wonder Woman, she was Wonder Woman. Her blend of strength, elegance, and authenticity inspired millions, redefining what it meant to be a superhero on and off the screen. Charm beyond the costume. Her star power didn't stop at Wonder Woman. While the role made her famous, her off-screen persona made her beloved. At a time when many celebrities felt distant or untouchable, Linda broke the mold with her warmth and relatability. She lit up every interview she gave. On The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or Dinah, Linda's quick wit and charm stole the spotlight. She shared funny behind-the-scenes stories, offering fans a glimpse into her life on set. She didn't just stick to glamorous tales either. Linda openly talked about her struggles in Hollywood, her relentless work ethic, and her belief in perseverance. These moments made her feel like someone you could grab coffee with, not just a star on TV. Linda's genuine connection with fans set her apart. At conventions and public events, she didn't just sign autographs, she engaged. Fans described her as kind, attentive, and unhurried, often staying longer than expected to chat and take photos. Meeting Linda felt personal, almost like catching up with a friend. That authenticity made her unforgettable. She also spoke candidly about balancing fame with normal life. Linda didn't hide the pressures of living up to Wonder Woman's image or the challenges that came with constant public attention. Her honesty resonated. Fans saw her not just as a glamorous icon, but as someone navigating the ups and downs of life with grace. Linda's passion for advocacy only deepened her appeal. She championed women's empowerment and equal rights, aligning herself with Wonder Woman's values. She didn't just talk the talk. She used her platform to push for meaningful change. Her actions blurred the line between her character and her real-life ideals, making her a symbol of authenticity and strength. For men, Linda wasn't just admired for her looks or talent. She earned respect for her sincerity and integrity, her ability to stay grounded in a world that often isn't made her stand out. Linda Carter wasn't just a star, she was the real deal, a rare mix of beauty, brains, and heart. Music and multi-talented appeal. While most fans knew Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, her passion for music revealed another side of her talent. Singing wasn't just a hobby, it was a lifelong love. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, she pursued her musical dreams, performing in nightclubs and concert halls to enthusiastic audiences. Linda's live shows showcased her powerful voice and natural stage presence. Her ability to connect with fans went beyond superheroics. She created an intimate, welcoming atmosphere. Whether singing her own songs or reimagining classics, Linda's performances highlighted her range and artistry. Fans who came to see Wonder Woman discovered a soulful, versatile musician. In 1978, Linda brought her music to TV with the Linda Carter Special. The show combined her singing with dazzling choreography and proved she could captivate audiences without a cape or lasso. The special was a hit, leading to Linda Carter Encore in 1980, where she performed alongside stars like Tom Jones. These specials cemented her reputation as more than just an actress. She was a true entertainer. Linda didn't treat music as a side project, she poured her heart into it. "Singing has always been my first love," she often said, and it showed. Her dedication led to the release of her debut album, Portrait, in 1978. Decades later, in 2009, she returned with Crazy Little Things, proving her commitment to the craft and her ability to adapt to new musical styles. Her music resonated deeply with fans, especially men, who admired her ability to balance beauty, talent, and authenticity. For them, seeing Linda perform live added another dimension to her appeal. She wasn't just a superhero or a television icon, she was a genuine artist with depth and passion. Linda's musical career wasn't about chasing trends or fame, it was about sharing a piece of herself with her audience. Her performances offered fans a chance to see her in a new light, as a woman who could move seamlessly between genres and mediums while staying true to herself. For Linda, music wasn't just a career, it was her heart, and fans loved her all the more for it, a role model for empowerment. Linda Carter didn't just play a superhero, she became one. Her portrayal of Wonder Woman broke barriers, showing a heroine who was both strong and compassionate. But Linda's influence went far beyond the screen. She embraced her role as a symbol of empowerment, using her platform to inspire change and advocate for equality. One of Linda's biggest passions was championing women's rights. She spoke openly about independence and self-confidence, urging women to push back against societal limits. "You can be strong and still be kind," she often said, a mantra that resonated deeply. She didn't just talk about these ideals, she lived them. Linda participated in events and supported organizations that uplifted women and encouraged them to embrace their potential. For men, Linda's empowerment message was just as impactful. She shattered the old damsel in distress trope. Instead, she was the one doing the saving, on-screen as Wonder Woman and off-screen as a fierce advocate for fairness. Her mix of grace and power was magnetic, proving strength didn't have to come at the expense of compassion. Linda understood the weight of her role. Playing Wonder Woman wasn't just acting, it was representing something bigger. She became a beacon for young girls who saw in her the possibilities of what they could achieve. At public appearances, Linda went out of her way to connect with fans, reinforcing the idea that strength came in many forms. For her, embodying Wonder Woman wasn't a costume. It was a responsibility she took seriously. Her advocacy earned admiration from everyone, not just women. Men respected her resilience and authenticity. She redefined what it meant to be a leader, not through dominance but with balance, integrity, and heart. Linda Carter wasn't just inspiring because of the roles she played. She inspired through her actions and beliefs. By embracing and living out the values of Wonder Woman, Linda proved that superheroes don't just belong to comic books. They exist in real life, too. She became the ultimate role model, showing that strength, kindness, and authenticity could create lasting change and redefine what it means to be a hero. Navigating challenges with grace. When Wonder Woman ended in 1979, Linda Carter faced a tough transition. The role had made her famous, but it also typecast her. Casting directors struggled to see her as anyone other than Diana Prince. Breaking free from the superhero mold wasn't easy, but Linda was determined to prove her range. In the early 1980s, she focused on smaller projects to expand her acting repertoire. TV movies like The Last Song, 1980, and Born to Be Sold, 1981, gave her a chance to explore more dramatic roles. The Last Song highlighted her ability to handle emotional storylines, while Born to Be Sold tackled social issues, letting Linda show her depth. These projects weren't mainstream hits, but they demonstrated her commitment to growth as an actress. While her career was shifting, Linda's personal life also faced turbulence. In 1984, she divorced Ron Samuels, her first husband and a Hollywood producer. Their marriage had coincided with her rise to fame, but the strain of her evolving career and personal differences led to the split. The divorce was public, but Linda managed it with dignity, choosing to focus on her next steps. Instead of chasing immediate stardom, Linda took control of her path. She stepped back from high-profile roles and began exploring other interests. Her financial stability from Wonder Woman allowed her the freedom to be selective about her projects. She also started investing more time in personal growth and her music, which remained a passion. By the late 1980s, Linda's priorities shifted. She started working on causes that aligned with her values. While her screen presence became less frequent, she remained active in ways that mattered to her. Revival of a cultural icon. The 1990s and 2000s saw Linda Carter reclaim her place in the spotlight. While many stars of her era faded into the background, Linda stayed relevant, reinventing herself for new audiences. Guest roles in hit shows like Law & Order and Smallville reminded viewers of her acting chops. Her Smallville appearance as Moira Sullivan was a clever nod to her superhero legacy, thrilling longtime fans and introducing her to younger viewers. Linda didn't shy away from her Wonder Woman roots. Instead, she leaned in. She became a favorite at comic conventions and fan events where her appearances felt more personal than performative. Linda didn't just sign autographs. She listened to stories from fans who saw Wonder Woman as a life-changing inspiration. These moments weren't just nostalgic. They underscored her lasting influence and her ability to connect across generations. Her iconic status was cemented in 2017 when she appeared in Wonder Woman 1984. Director Patty Jenkins called Linda a pioneer, crediting her for paving the way for modern portrayals of superheroes. The cameo wasn't just a tribute, it was a celebration of her role in shaping the genre. Linda's revival wasn't limited to acting. Her music career flourished during this period. She performed sold-out concerts nationwide, sharing her love for blues and jazz with enthusiastic audiences. Her 2018 album, Red Rockin' Blues, showcased her rich, soulful voice and artistic evolution. It proved that Linda wasn't just revisiting old passions, she was mastering them. Her ability to stay relevant went beyond talent. Linda's authenticity was her superpower. She embraced her past while continuing to evolve, striking a balance that resonated with fans old and new. Longtime admirers cherished her dedication to the Wonder Woman legacy, while younger audiences saw her as a dynamic, multifaceted artist. Timeless allure of Lynda Carter. For men, Lynda Carter is a mix of beauty, strength, and authenticity that has always been irresistible. She embodies resilience, talent, and empowerment, a combination that has kept her admired for decades. Her Wonder Woman role launched her into global stardom, but Lynda refused to be defined by it. She built on her superhero foundation, branching out into music, acting, and advocacy. Whether captivating audiences with her soulful singing, taking on diverse roles, or connecting with fans at events, Lynda proved she was more than a one-hit wonder. She blended glamour with approachability, a mix that made her relatable to fans while maintaining her iconic status. Her authenticity sets her apart. Fans consistently describe her as warm and gracious, qualities that have remained unchanged despite decades in the public eye. For those who grew up watching her as Wonder Woman, she's a nostalgic symbol of their youth. For newer audiences, she's a reminder of a Hollywood where charisma and talent carried weight, standing in stark contrast to today's fleeting celebrity culture. Her advocacy work has only solidified her timeless appeal. Lynda has used her platform to align her real-life values with the qualities she brought to Wonder Woman. Her message, that true strength comes from within, resonates deeply. This seamless blend of on-screen heroism and off-screen authenticity has created an unbreakable bond with her fans. Even now, Lynda Carter's presence remains captivating. Whether performing at sold-out concerts, appearing in cameos, or engaging with fans at conventions, she exudes the same energy that first won audiences over in the 1970s. Her charisma feels effortless, a rare gift that transcends eras. Back when TV antennas needed a prayer and a good whack to work, boomers ruled the remote, if you could even call it that. From laugh tracks louder than your dad's snoring to cliffhangers that had people genuinely yelling at their screens, classic TV wasn't just a pastime, it was a whole personality. But can Gen Z even handle the suspense of waiting a whole week for the next episode? Spoiler alert, not likely. Captain Kangaroo. Do you remember those early mornings with Captain Kangaroo? Of course, how could you forget? His calm, gentle voice felt like a warm hug.
Definitely not a bored, nothing-to-do day. It's a get-out-and-get-going day.
Welcoming kids into the day. Much unlike what we have today, it was not some loud cartoon with crazy action, just simple, comforting stories and friendly chats. Oh, and remember the characters? Mr. Green Jeans and Bunny Rabbit. Captain Kangaroo had this magical way of making you feel like you were in the room with him, and every kid knew it was time to sit back, relax, and let Captain take over. Let's face it, we may never get anything quite like that anymore. When you remember it, it'll make you want to whistle in nostalgia, but not as much as this next memory.
I love you all. You too. And you too. And me too.
Andy Griffith's whistling theme song. That whistling theme used to send shivers down the spine, didn't it? As soon as it started, you could almost picture Andy and Opie walking hand in hand down a dirt path, fishing poles over their shoulders, off to some peaceful spot by the water. The tune was not only catchy, it captured everything the show was about: simplicity, family, and the warmth of small-town life. It may have been lighthearted, but it's hard to forget. It instantly transported you to a world where the biggest problems could be solved with a friendly chat or a trip to the local diner. Once you heard it, it was like a promise that for the next 30 minutes, all was right with the world. But not as right as Saturday mornings with your favorite cartoons. Saturday morning cartoons! How was it for you? Just you, a big bowl of cereal, and the TV all to yourself. The Flintstones kicked things off with that prehistoric humor. Fred and Barney were like old friends getting into trouble. Then came Scooby-Doo, where you and the gang solved mysteries together, always wondering who was really behind the mask. And the Jetsons. That was a glimpse of the future we all thought we'd have by now, with flying cars and robot helpers. Well, maybe we're getting close anyways. But those mornings weren't just about watching cartoons. They were a ritual. No streaming or reruns, just that one time a week to catch your favorite characters. It was like a mini escape, and every boomer remembers those moments like they were yesterday. Dragnet's deadpan delivery. Now remember this? Sgt Joe Friday had that deadpan style that was all business. Just the facts, ma'am. No fluff, no nonsense. He wasn't about flashy gadgets or over-the-top action. He was all about keeping it steady, sticking to the facts, and letting the clues speak for themselves. If you're a boomer, there was something so refreshing about his straightforward grit. And the catchphrase would always make you smile like you're probably doing right now. It was definitely not just a phrase. You knew exactly what you were getting with Joe Friday. A guy who didn't mess around, just solved the case one fact at a time. Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island. Remember Mr. Rourke, played by Ricardo Montalban? Every episode kicked off with Tattoo calling out, "The plane, the plane," signaling that new guests and new mysteries were about to land. It was exciting. Mr. Rourke was the ultimate host, always calm, classy, and just mysterious enough to make you wonder what he knew that no one else did. Each guest's adventure was unpredictable, with dreams turning into unexpected lessons, and Rourke was right there, guiding things with that smooth, knowing smile. It was TV magic that made us think twice about what we really wished for. Goodnight John Boy on the Waltons. Who can forget that iconic Goodnight John Boy from the Waltons? It started out as a line, but it turned into a sweet little ritual. You'd see each family member say goodnight, and it always felt so genuine. It made you feel like you were right there with them, part of their close-knit family. For us boomers, it hit home, right? It reminded us of our own family routines, gathering around the table for dinner, sharing the highs and lows of the day, and then winding down together. Each good night felt like a cozy hug, reinforcing those bonds of love and support we all cherish. In the end, the Waltons gave us a peek into a world where family truly mattered. When they tucked in John Boy with that simple phrase, it was like they were tucking us in too, making us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Honestly, who wouldn't want to be part of that loving crew? It's those little moments that stick with us. The line from Saturday Night Live.
It's Saturday Night Live!
Live from New York, it's Saturday night. That iconic line kicked off Saturday Night Live and instantly set the stage for a night of laughs. It was the ultimate weekend tradition. You'd gather around the TV knowing you were in for something fresh and hilarious, whether it was a spot-on parody or a ridiculous skit. The energy was electric, and the show became a launching pad for some of the biggest names in comedy. Who could forget the wild antics of the not-ready-for-prime-time players? They pushed boundaries and tackled everything from politics to pop culture, making us laugh while making us think. SNL was more than just a show. It was a cultural phenomenon. It shaped the way we saw comedy and brought the week's news right into our living rooms in a way that was both funny and relatable. Those late-night laughs became a staple in our lives, and even today that opening line brings back a flood of nostalgic memories. Carol Burnett's hilarious costumes and skits. She had us in stitches, especially with that classic Gone with the Wind curtain rod dress. And those The Family skits? Carol Burnett and her cast brought those characters to life in a way that felt both hilarious and real, turning family squabbles into comedy gold. Only boomers remember that the Carol Burnett Show was a must-watch. Along with Tim Conway, Harvey Korman, and Vicki Lawrence, the show made every episode feel like a comedy masterclass. They broke character, cracked each other up, and let us laugh right along with them. In the end, it was more than just a performance or just a show for laughs. Somehow, the show made us feel like part of the fun. There is no doubt that her show was one of the true highlights of TV comedy. They don't make them like that anymore. Charlie's Angels.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little girls who went to the police academy.
Who could forget Charlie's Angels and their iconic feathered hair? Those ladies brought style and fierceness to detective work like never before. Farrah Fawcett, Jacqueline Smith, and Kate Jackson weren't just solving crimes. They were doing it with confidence and a killer fashion sense. Charlie's Angels was a game changer. The Angels had brains, beauty, and serious attitude, breaking the mold of what female characters could be on TV. Each week, they took down the bad guys with grace, smarts, and that unforgettable 70s style. They made every case look like an adventure and made us all wish we could rock feathered hair just as well. Batman Dynamic Duo. If you're a fan of Batman, you'd surely remember the days of Adam West and Burt Ward. They turned Gotham City into a campy, colorful adventure, battling villains with that over-the-top style that was just plain fun. With every pow and bam splashed across the screen, they brought comic book action to life in a way we hadn't seen before. Adam West's straight-faced Batman and Burt Ward's wide-eyed Robin were a perfect pair, giving us thrills and laughs in equal measure. If you read the comics, you'd find that they embodied the characters so well. It was pure escapism to watch them. Tuning in to watch the dynamic duo take down the bad guys with crazy gadgets, corny lines, and a wink to the audience is something that can't be forgotten in a hurry. Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. He was the ultimate Old West Marshal in Gunsmoke, wasn't he? Every week he kept Dodge City in line with a steady hand and a serious sense of justice. For us boomers, Dillon was the real deal, tough, fair, and always ready to stand up to outlaws, no matter the odds. Played by the legendary James Arness, Dillon wasn't just another cowboy. He brought depth to the role, showing a lawman with grit, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to his town. Watching him on Gunsmoke felt like stepping into the Old West, where good and bad were clear-cut, and the hero always fought to keep peace in Dodge City. It was classic Western TV at its best. Edith and Archie Bunker's duet. Never before has there been such an amazing duet right before an episode plays. Archie and Edith Bunker's duet, "Those Were the Days," which kicked off All in the Family, was so wonderful to listen to. Archie's gruff voice and Edith's high-pitched warble were perfectly mismatched, but that was part of the charm. For all of those who know, that song was more than just a theme. It reminds us of simpler times back when life felt less complicated and everyone seemed to know their place in the world. The duet would set the tone for each episode, playful yet honest. Right before Archie took on whatever hot-button issue was on his mind. All in the Family didn't just make us laugh, it made us think, all while keeping us grounded in the Bunker's quirky, imperfect, and oh-so-relatable family life. Red Skelton's characters. From the lovable goof, Clem Kadiddlehopper, to the hobo with a heart, Freddie the freeloader, Skelton's cast of characters brought joy to families everywhere. He had this rare gift for making each character feel relatable and unique, filling every sketch with warmth and humor. Skelton could crack you up with a simple look or gesture, and his comedy was clean, clever, and perfect for all ages. Watching him was like a masterclass in comedy, and for boomers, those characters still bring back warm memories of family laughter. Live long and prosper greeting on Star Trek.
Live long and prosper.
That Vulcan greeting, paired with his famous split-fingered salute, is one of those phrases that instantly takes us back. Spock's iconic catchphrase was a profound sentiment, carrying the spirit of hope and goodwill. To all those who know, Spock was far from just a mere character. He was the voice of reason in a universe full of chaos. With his logical mind and calm demeanor, he navigated intergalactic conflicts and philosophical dilemmas, reminding us that there's value in logic and understanding. Every time he said, "Live long and prosper," it felt like he was sharing a universal wish for peace and longevity, not just for himself, but for everyone. The Fonz's thumbs up. Let's talk about the Fonz from Happy Days. He was the coolest character on the show, always dressed in his leather jacket and exuding charm. His signature move? That iconic thumbs up. Whenever he gave that gesture, it was like a signal that something great was coming. You'd see him snap his fingers, and instantly, you knew he was about to make something awesome happen, whether it was saving the day or getting the attention of his crush, Pinky Tuscadero. The Fonz's confidence and coolness was like the spirit of the 70s, making him a beloved symbol of that era. Lucy's chocolate factory scene. This moment is a hilarious gem that everyone remembers. Lucy and her best friend Ethel get jobs at a chocolate factory, and things quickly spiral out of control. There was a conveyor belt filled with chocolates, and it starts moving faster than they can handle. As they try to wrap each piece, they end up stuffing chocolates in their mouths, their aprons, and anywhere they can. The chaos and physical comedy are simply priceless. Their frantic efforts to keep up and the outrageous situations they find themselves in are what make this scene pure comedy gold. This moment perfectly showcases Lucy's knack for getting into trouble and Ethel's willingness to join her antics. Their chemistry and timing have left a lasting impact on television history, reminding us of the magic that happens when two talented actresses deliver unforgettable performances. Even today, it still makes us laugh and captures the essence of classic TV comedy. The Brady Bunch's family theme song.
Here's the story.
You know that theme song, don't you? Every time it starts, you can't help but smile and maybe even sing along a bit. The catchy intro welcomed us into the lives of this blended family, bringing together two households with kids from different backgrounds. The song perfectly showed us what family life is like, teaching us that it doesn't always have to be traditional to be wonderful. As the catchy tune plays, we're introduced to the characters, Mike, Carol, and their 6 kids, all living under one roof. It highlights the fun and chaos of a big family, with everyone learning to get along, love each other, and share life's ups and downs. That theme song is a nostalgic reminder of the importance of family, no matter how unconventional it may be. It set the stage for countless memorable episodes, making us feel like we were part of the Brady family every time we watched. The Jetsons' futuristic family. Let's take a trip back to the Jetsons, shall we? This animated show gave us a fun and exciting look at the future, and for boomers, it was like a window into what life might be like in a tech-savvy world. The Jetson family, George, Jane, Judy, Elroy, and their lovable robot maid, Rosie, introduced us to a life filled with flying cars, space-age gadgets, and all sorts of futuristic inventions. Just imagine zipping around in a car that flies instead of drives. And Rosie, the robot maid, was ahead of her time, making household chores a breeze with her witty personality and efficient skills. But what made the Jetsons so memorable was how it blended humor with the hope of what technology could achieve. It inspired dreams of a high-tech lifestyle, making us wonder if we'd really have flying cars and smart homes one day. Even today, as we see advancements in technology, we can't help but think back to that optimistic vision of the future that the Jetsons painted for us. It was a fun reminder that while we might not be living in a flying car just yet, the spirit of innovation is always around the corner. Bewitched's nose wiggle. That little move became one of the most iconic gestures in television history. Whenever Samantha, played by the charming Elizabeth Montgomery, wiggled her nose, you knew something magical was about to happen. It was the perfect blend of whimsy and charm, capturing the imagination of viewers young and old. Just a quick wiggle, and poof, a messy situation was fixed. A delicious meal was prepared, or some chaos was transformed into order. When we watched, it made us wish we could have that kind of power in our everyday lives. Imagine being able to make chores disappear or turn an ordinary day into an adventure with just a twitch of our noses. The Twilight Zone's creepy narration.
To the Twilight Zone.
Rod Serling and his eerie voice was the perfect way to kick off each episode, setting the stage for the mind-bending stories that followed. As he introduced us to the strange and unusual, you could almost feel a chill run down your spine. Serling had this incredible ability to draw us into worlds that challenged our perceptions of reality. With every twist and turn in the plot, we found ourselves questioning what was real and what wasn't. His narration created an atmosphere of suspense and intrigue that kept us glued to our screens, wondering what bizarre scenario we would encounter next. Happy Trails with Roy Rogers. Now let's saddle up and reminisce about Roy Rogers, the legendary cowboy who brought the Wild West right into our living rooms. With his trusty horse, Trigger, by his side, Roy was the cowboy hero, and for boomers, watching him was like stepping into a grand adventure. Every episode was filled with thrilling escapades, musical numbers, and a strong sense of justice. Roy's signature songs, like Happy Trails, weren't just catchy tunes. They became anthems of friendship and adventure. His ability to strum a guitar and belt out a song while effortlessly riding Trigger made every episode feel like a joyful celebration of cowboy life. For many, those Saturday afternoons spent watching Roy Rogers are cherished memories of childhood that evoke a sense of nostalgia for a time when the Wild West was alive and well in our imaginations. Mazhe's theme song. That hauntingly beautiful tune perfectly captured the show's unique blend of humor and heartfelt moments. While the series was a comedy set during the Korean War, the song's lyrics were deeply reflective, touching on the complexities of life, loss, and the realities of war. Hearing that theme song was a signal to sit back and prepare for an episode that could make us laugh one minute and tug at our heartstrings the next. The Partridge Family's Musical Adventures. This show was all about fun, family, and music, and it captured the hearts of us boomers as we followed the family on their musical road trips. Every episode was an adventure, whether they were performing at a local gig or navigating the ups and downs of family life in their colorful bus. The catchy songs they sang, like I Think I Love You, were not just hits on the show but became chart toppers in real life, making us want to sing along. It was impossible not to get caught up in the infectious energy of their music. The Love Boat's romance and fun. For boomers, this show was the perfect escape, allowing us to dream of sun-soaked vacations and the thrill of new relationships. As the ship glided through the ocean, we followed various guests, each with their own love stories and challenges. Whether it was a chance encounter, rekindling an old flame, or navigating the ups and downs of romance, the Love Boat never failed to deliver heartwarming tales. The charming crew, led by Captain Stubing, always made sure that love was in the air, adding to the show's irresistible charm. The colorful settings, fun musical numbers, and guest stars made every episode feel like a delightful getaway. The Cosby Show's family. With Cliff and Claire Huxtable at the helm, this show beautifully showcased relatable family moments that many of us could connect with, whether we were parents, kids, or somewhere in between. The dynamics of the Huxtable family were heartwarming and real. From the playful banter between Cliff and Claire to the life lessons shared with their 5 children, the show celebrated love, education, and the ups and downs of parenting in a way that resonated with viewers. We saw everything from sibling rivalries to heartfelt conversations at the dinner table, reminding us that family life is full of both challenges and joy. Little House on the Prairie's pioneer life. Watching the Ingalls family navigate life on the prairie was more than just entertainment. It was a beautiful reminder of resilience and the importance of family values. Set in the late 1800s, each episode took us through the challenges and triumphs of pioneer life, from farming and building their home to facing harsh winters and community struggles. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood's Gentle Lessons. Fred Rogers was like a warm hug in TV form, and his gentle approach to educating kids left a lasting impact on all of us boomers. Each episode was more than just a show. It was a safe space where children could learn important life lessons about kindness, acceptance, and understanding their emotions. Fred had a unique way of speaking directly to his young audience, making each child feel seen and heard. Whether he was introducing us to new friends, exploring imaginative worlds, or discussing feelings like sadness or anger, he did it with such grace and sensitivity. The Bob Newhart Show's unique humor. What set the Bob Newhart Show apart was its clever writing and the way it tackled the quirks of human behavior. Each episode felt like a hilarious therapy session where Bob would calmly navigate the often absurd issues presented by his patients. From neurotic clients to hilariously bizarre situations, Bob's reactions and deadpan delivery added layers of comedy that kept audiences in stitches. How much of classic Hollywood films do you know? Well, some facts are common knowledge, but others, the producers tried to hide as best as they can but failed. From manipulating colors to terrible film mistakes, these random classic film facts are oddly intriguing. The curtains in Gone with the Wind. Remember Scarlett O'Hara's famous green curtains in Gone with the Wind? Well, turns out those curtains weren't even green. Back when they were filming Gone with the Wind, the Technicolor process didn't capture green very well. It looked strange or washed out on screen. So, instead of green fabric, the costume designers went with gray. It sounds funny, but on film, that gray gave the illusion of a rich green color without any technical issues. It's one of those clever movie tricks that most people never even realize, but it totally shaped the look of that iconic scene. But when it comes to iconic scenes, you'd be shocked at what the great Alfred Hitchcock has to say about his favorite appearance. Alfred Hitchcock's favorite cameo. If you know anything about Hitchcock, aside from the fact that he was such a filmmaking genius, he was also famous for his cameos. In nearly all of his movies, he'd pop up for a few seconds, maybe walking a dog, reading a newspaper, or just blending into a crowd. But here's the twist. His favorite cameo moment wasn't even his own. Instead, Hitchcock claimed he admired Cary Grant's walk in North by Northwest, 1959, more than anything he'd done himself. He thought the way Grant moved in the film looked incredibly Hitchcockian. Somehow, Grant captured the mysterious, slightly unsettling vibe that Hitchcock loved to create. It's like Grant's stride became a cameo for Hitchcock's whole style, without the director even being on screen. It appears some movies are just so great, even the actors like to take a piece home, like this next actor, Bela Lugosi and his cape. Did you know that even off-screen, Bela couldn't seem to let go of Dracula? After his iconic role as the vampire, Lugosi became so attached to the character that he actually wore his Dracula cape just about everywhere. He'd show up at parties, events, and even in his own home draped in that same black cloak as if he were still in character. He was so tied to the role that he even requested to be buried in his cape when he passed away. Did you know in some other movies they manipulate a lot of things to give us certain legendary images, like this next one? The Wizard of Oz slippers. Dorothy's ruby slippers in The Wizard of Oz weren't always meant to be red. In the original book by L. Frank Baum, her shoes were actually silver. But when MGM started working on the film, they realized they could use the new Technicolor technology to make the visuals pop. Red was more eye-catching on screen than silver, so they made a bold choice and changed Dorothy's shoes to ruby red. It was a simple color switch that created one of the most iconic props in movie history. As far as Hollywood history is concerned, on-screen romances were often real, all except these two. Vivien Leigh kissing Clark Gable. From the viewer's perspective, there was no denying the chemistry between the two on-screen lovebirds, but the reality is a bit more shocking. Even though Vivien Leigh might have looked smitten with Clark Gable in Gone with the Wind behind the scenes, she wasn't exactly thrilled about their kissing scenes. In fact, she reportedly complained about Gable's breath, saying it was pretty bad, and all because of his dentures. You see, Gable had dental issues and wore false teeth, which didn't exactly make those romantic moments easy for Leigh. Remember how they manipulate movies to produce curated content? Well, this next one takes the cake. Marilyn Monroe's iconic white dress. In The 7-Year Itch, the iconic white dress donned by Marilyn Monroe wasn't actually white. While it looks perfectly white on screen, the filmmakers had to work around the limitations of the lighting and cameras of the time. Pure white would have been too bright and would have overexposed, so they chose a slightly cream-colored fabric instead. This way, the dress wouldn't look too washed out under the intense studio lights, and it still gave that classic dazzling effect on screen. It's a small detail, but one that made a big difference in creating that unforgettable scene. Speaking of unforgettable scenes, this next actor seemed very forgetful on set. Marlon Brando couldn't memorize lines. In The Godfather, Marlon Brando famously used cue cards, which were hidden all over the set. In some scenes, his lines were even taped to the actors' foreheads so he could read them while looking at them. Brando believed that not memorizing his lines made his performance feel more spontaneous and natural. It's a funny trick that helped him bring the unforgettable character of Vito Corleone to life, without having to rely on his memory. What is your memory of the film, My Fair Lady? Probably the amazing singing, right? Well, this would burst your bubble. The singing in My Fair Lady. Audrey Hepburn may have looked and acted the part of Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady, 1964, but when it came to the singing, that wasn't actually her voice. Most of the vocals were dubbed by Marni Nixon, a talented singer who did a lot of behind-the-scenes work for Hollywood stars. Hepburn worked hard and practiced the songs for months, but the studio ultimately decided Nixon's voice fit the role better. Hepburn was disappointed, but she put her heart into acting, and together they created a performance that's still beloved today. For some films, it's all fake performance, but this next scene took being realistic to the next level. The horse's head scene from Godfather. In this chilling scene, the character of Jack Woltz, a Hollywood producer, wakes up to find the severed head of his prized racehorse placed in his bed as a warning from the mafia. Now most people may have concluded that the horse's head in that scene was fake, but believe it or not, it wasn't fake. It was real. The production used an actual horse's head, which they acquired from a dog food company. The crew made sure the head was fresh and lifelike, and it was so realistic that actor John Marley, who played the character receiving it in his bed, was genuinely horrified. The scene is shocking enough as it is, but knowing it was a real horse's head makes it even more unsettling. What's even more unsettling when fans learn about it is this next part. The piano in Casablanca. Remember that piano where Sam plays As Time Goes By? Well, it wasn't just an ordinary prop. It's become almost as iconic as the movie itself. But here's the thing. There wasn't just one piano used in the film. In fact, the famous piano that Sam plays in Rick's Cafe was sold multiple times over the years, often being touted as the only Casablanca piano. However, there were actually several pianos used during the filming, and the one that ended up being sold at auction wasn't even the original. It's a fun fact that adds a little mystery to the film's history. Just how many real pianos did the movie really have? Well, hopefully, no one stole any, which is more than can be said for the props in this next movie. Charlton Heston stealing the Ten Commandments. Known for his towering performances in films like The Ten Commandments, 1956, Charlton Heston apparently couldn't resist taking home a piece of the action. After filming, he actually took one of the Ten Commandments tablets as a souvenir. Heston, who played Moses in the epic film, reportedly loved the idea of keeping a relic from such an iconic movie, and the tablet became a bit of a personal memento. But sometimes personal mementos can become public property just like this. Red jacket in Rebel Without a Cause. James Dean's famous red jacket in Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, became almost as iconic as the actor himself. But here's the twist. After the film was done, the jacket didn't just sit in a costume department. It was reused in other teen movies of the 1950s and 60s. Studios loved the idea of reusing such a recognizable piece of clothing to save money, and the jacket showed up in various films, becoming a kind of recycled symbol of rebellious youth. It's one thing for an object to be recycled. This actor had his face transformed and recycled for our viewing pleasure. Frankenstein's makeup. Boris Karloff's monster, Frankenstein, 1931, is one of the most terrifying characters in film history, but what's even scarier is how the makeup was created. Karloff had to endure hours of makeup application to transform into the monster, but it wasn't just time-consuming, it was also incredibly uncomfortable. The famous flat-top head was made from layers of plaster and rubber, and Karloff had to be sewn into his costume every day. The heavy, tight makeup and costume often made him faint from exhaustion, and he couldn't even drink water during filming because the makeup was so delicate. Despite the grueling process, Karloff's dedication to the role made the character unforgettable. Now, actors are not the only ones with dedication. Some directors and producers hold their own and are super creative too. The shower scene in Psycho. In Psycho, 1960, Alfred Hitchcock pulled off one of the most iconic scenes in horror history, the shower scene that took a bloody turn. But the blood you see in that scene isn't actually blood at all. Since the film was shot in black and white, Hitchcock used Hershey's chocolate syrup instead. The syrup was the perfect consistency to mimic blood, and its dark, rich color looked realistic on camera. It's a clever little trick that helped make the infamous shower scene so unsettling, and it's hard to watch it today without thinking about the sweet ingredient behind such a terrifying moment. For this next actress, the ingredient of her appeal was so obvious to all. Betta Grable's iconic legs. Her legs were her signature feature, and she knew just how valuable they were. In fact, she had them insured for a whopping $1 million, a move that was practically unheard of at the time. Grable was one of the most popular stars of the 1940s, and her legs were considered one of her most iconic attributes, often showcased in her pin-up photos and films. The insurance policy was a publicity stunt, but it also helped cement her as one of Hollywood's most marketable stars. Famous or not, some movies can just slip up in the worst way, like this one. Chariot Race in Ben-Hur. It's so astonishing to see horrible film mistakes in an otherwise legendary film, and Ben-Hur is one of them. In the film, there's a famous chariot race that remains one of the most thrilling scenes in movie history. But what's interesting is that a stray Coca-Cola bottle can be spotted in the background during the race. This slip-up has been a fun piece of trivia for fans of the film. Despite the movie's epic scale and historical setting, a modern-day bottle made its way onto the set, probably unnoticed during filming. It's a quirky reminder that even in the most serious and grandiose films, mistakes can sometimes slip through the cracks. From slipping mistakes, this next one had actors slipping into unconsciousness. Flying monkey masks from Wizard of Oz. The iconic flying monkeys were not just a creepy part of the fantasy world of Wizard of Oz. They had a rather unsettling real-world detail. The masks the actors wore for their roles as the flying monkeys were so uncomfortable and hot that many of the actors would faint during the filming. Some of the performers even had to be helped off the set because they couldn't see through the masks and struggled to breathe. Despite the discomfort, those flying monkeys went on to become one of the most terrifying parts of the film, adding to the eerie atmosphere of the Wicked Witch's army. The fake shark in Jaws. The film's iconic shark, Bruce, wasn't exactly the smoothest operator. The mechanical shark frequently malfunctioned during filming, causing a lot of frustration for director Steven Spielberg and his crew. In fact, the shark broke down so often that Spielberg had to get creative. Instead of showing the shark constantly, he used suspense and sound to build tension, making the audience fear the shark before they even saw it. This decision ended up being one of the film's greatest strengths, and it helped Jaws become the thrilling classic we know today. Sometimes, a mistake in Hollywood can lead to something even better. King Kong's roar. The terrifying roar of King Kong in the 1933 film, King Kong wasn't created by a lion, as many people believe. Instead, the iconic sound was a mix of various animal noises. The filmmakers combined the roars of a lion, tiger, and elephant, then added a touch of a hawk's cry to make it sound even more menacing. The result was a unique and unforgettable roar that helped establish King Kong as one of cinema's most fearsome creatures. It's a clever example of how sound design, using different elements together, can create something larger than life. Stray cat in Godfather. The cat that Marlon Brando holds in the famous opening scene wasn't part of the script at all. It was just a stray that wandered onto the set during filming. Brando, being the improviser he was, decided to pick it up and include it in the scene. The cat's calm and unbothered demeanor added a surprising contrast to the tense, dramatic moment, giving Vito Corleone an unexpected air of control and serenity. It's a great example of how spontaneity can enhance a scene, turning an unplanned moment into an iconic one. Titanic set in A Night to Remember. In the 1958 film A Night to Remember, which depicts the tragic sinking of the Titanic, the filmmakers used a real-life ocean liner to create the look of the ill-fated ship. The ship in question wasn't the Titanic, of course, but the RMS Coronia, a vessel that closely resembled the Titanic in both appearance and scale. The filmmakers even used real footage of the Coronia for several scenes, making the ship's portrayal in the film feel remarkably authentic. While the Coronia wasn't the Titanic, it still provided a sense of realism that added to the gravity of the story. The decision to incorporate real ship footage helped to enhance the film's impact, showing the grandeur of ocean liners from that era. It's a great example of how filmmakers from earlier decades used practical solutions to create stunning visuals and immerse audiences in the story, even before the age of CGI and modern special effects. Hidden message in Rear Window. If you take a close look at the windows of the building across from James Stewart's apartment in Rear Window, 1954, you'll notice something cool. There's a sign that says Hitchcock was here. It's a little hidden Easter egg, and it's one of Alfred Hitchcock's playful ways of leaving his mark on the film. Known for his love of cameos and subtle details, Hitchcock included this sneaky signature in the set as a fun, personal touch, and it's just one of those little things that makes watching his movies even more enjoyable for those who spot it. Cat in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Holly Golightly's cat in the movie doesn't have a name, which is actually kind of fitting for her character. Audrey Hepburn's character simply calls it Cat throughout the film. It's one of those little things that says a lot about who Holly is. She's this free-spirited, unpredictable woman who doesn't want to be tied down by anything, and that includes giving the cat a proper name. In a way, the nameless cat becomes a symbol of her own loneliness. Holly is always surrounded by people but is emotionally distant, much like the cat. It's a subtle yet powerful touch that helps us understand Holly's character even more, and over the years the cat has become just as iconic as Hepburn's own portrayal of the character. It's funny how such a small detail can leave such a lasting impression. Betty White in The Proposal. If you remember her cameo from The Proposal, you may be shocked to learn it wasn't something that was planned from the start. Originally, the role she plays wasn't even meant for her. The part was intended for a different actress, but after the filmmakers saw Betty White in another film, they realized she'd be perfect for the role. They quickly made the change, and it turned out to be a fantastic decision. Her performance in The Proposal ended up being one of her most memorable comedic moments in modern Hollywood. She brought her signature humor and charm, turning what could have been just a small role into one of the standout moments of the movie. It's a great example of how sometimes the right person for a role is found unexpectedly, and in Betty's case, it gave audiences another reason to fall in love with her legendary comedic timing. The Vertigo Dress. The iconic green dress Kim Novak wears in Vertigo, 1958, wasn't just a random costume. It was actually custom-made just for her. Alfred Hitchcock, known for his meticulous attention to detail, was very specific about how he wanted the dress to look. He even insisted on a special shade of green, one that would perfectly match the film's eerie, mysterious tone. This dress is featured in one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie, when Novak's character, Judy, undergoes a dramatic transformation. The green color itself plays a symbolic role, reflecting the themes of obsession and the uncanny that run throughout the film. It's a perfect example of Hitchcock's genius in using every detail, from costumes to colors, to deepen the atmosphere and enhance the story. Fake snow in White Christmas. The snow in the famous White Christmas number wasn't real at all. Instead, it was made from a mixture of soap flakes and other materials designed to look like snow on screen. The filmmakers had to get creative since real snow wouldn't work for filming indoors, especially under the bright studio lights. However, the fake snow had a bit of a problem. It was so light that it often got stuck in the performers' costumes. Between takes, the actors would have to be brushed off to get rid of the snow that clung to them. It's a small behind-the-scenes detail, but it shows how making something look perfect on camera often comes with unexpected challenges. Dog-paid actor in Wizard of Oz. Here's an interesting fact of the movie. The dog playing Toto was actually paid more than the Munchkin actors. Toto, the adorable terrier, earned $125 a week for his role, while the Munchkin actors were paid only $50 a week. It's one of those oddities in film history that highlights how animal stars were sometimes treated more lavishly than human actors. While it may seem surprising today, it was a reflection of how Hollywood viewed animals as major assets to a production. Plus, Toto's role was pretty significant in the film, so maybe it makes sense he earned a little extra. Skull Island set in King Kong. The lush, mysterious Skull Island in King Kong, 1933, might look like a real, exotic location, but in reality, it was just a set. The jungle scenes were filmed on a soundstage, complete with painted backdrops and carefully crafted sets designed to give the illusion of a vast, untamed island. It's one of the early examples of movie magic, showing how filmmakers were able to create expansive and immersive worlds without the need for actual locations. Even though the island wasn't real, the way it was brought to life helped make King Kong one of the most iconic films of its time. The Kid set. Charlie Chaplin's iconic set for the orphanage was built in just one day. Chaplin and his crew worked tirelessly around the clock to put everything together quickly. Despite the rush, the result was one of the most memorable and beloved locations in silent film history. The set became such a crucial part of the film, helping to create the emotional depth and sense of struggle that Chaplin's character, along with the little boy, experienced. It's a great example of how Chaplin's dedication and resourcefulness made a lasting impact on filmmaking, even when working under tight deadlines. Betty's incredible style in All About Eve. Some of Bette Davis's character Margot Channing's outfits were actually pieces from Davis's own personal wardrobe. Costume designer William Travilla was so taken with her unique and elegant style that he decided to incorporate her real clothes into the film. This gave Margot's character even more authenticity and depth, as the clothing felt more true to who she was as a person. It's a fascinating detail, showing how Davis's personal style helped shape the role and made Margot Channing one of the most iconic characters in classic Hollywood. Audrey Hepburn wasn't just an actress. She was a phenomenon. In a world filled with icons, she stood apart, enchanting men across generations in a way that no one else ever could. She wasn't the loudest or the boldest, but she left a mark deeper than most. So why did she captivate the hearts of so many, and why does her allure still endure decades later? The timeless beauty. Audrey Hepburn's beauty was like no one else's, and that's exactly what made her unforgettable. While most of the leading ladies of her time were all about bold curves, dramatic looks, and that bombshell vibe, Audrey was different. Her beauty was soft, delicate, and somehow even more captivating. First off, let's talk about those eyes. People called them doe eyes for a reason. They were big, almond-shaped, and full of warmth. Like you could look into them and see kindness, curiosity, and a little bit of mystery all at once. They didn't just look pretty, they expressed everything. Joy, sadness, charm, without her saying a single word. Then, there was her neck, a feature most of us probably don't think much about. Audrey's neck was long and elegant, almost swan-like, which gave her this graceful, regal quality. It was one of those details that made her look poised and refined without even trying. And, of course, there was that smile. Audrey's smile was magic. It had just the right mix of sophistication and playfulness. It wasn't flashy or exaggerated. It was subtle but lit up every room she walked into. Her smile was one of those rare ones that could make you feel like you knew her, even if you were just seeing her on a screen. What really set her apart, though, was how different she looked compared to the Hollywood standard at the time. Back then, bold, curvy women like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell were all the rage. Audrey broke the mold with her slender, almost ballerina-like figure and understated beauty. She didn't need to be loud to stand out. Her elegance and simplicity spoke for her. She proved that beauty didn't always have to scream for attention. Sometimes, it's the quiet, unique details that make the biggest impression. Audrey's figure was almost ballerina-like, graceful, lithe, and impossibly elegant. She didn't need curves to command attention. Her poise and presence spoke louder than any exaggerated features could. She carried herself with a natural sophistication that made her look effortlessly chic in anything she wore, whether it was a simple black dress or capri pants and flats. At a time when glamour often felt over the top, Audrey's style was subtle, clean, and timeless. She made less feel like so much more. Her beauty wasn't just in her figure, it was in her whole approach to how she presented herself. She didn't rely on heavy makeup or flashy fashion to turn heads. Instead, Audrey celebrated simplicity, and somehow that made her even more magnetic. Her short pixie haircut, a daring choice for the era, and minimalist makeup highlighted her natural features, those doe eyes, high cheekbones, and that unforgettable smile. She proved that confidence and elegance could outshine even the boldest looks. But what truly set Audrey apart was the way her beauty reflected her personality. While other actresses leaned into sultry, dramatic personas, Audrey radiated kindness, charm, and warmth. She didn't try to be anyone but herself. In a world obsessed with loudness and curves, Audrey showed that subtlety, grace, and individuality could steal the spotlight. Audrey wasn't just different for the sake of being different. She became a new standard of beauty. She proved that you don't need to fit a mold to be unforgettable. Sometimes being yourself is the most beautiful thing of all. Her incomparable elegance. While other stars relied on extravagance to make a statement, Audrey proved that true style doesn't need to shout. It was her quiet confidence, her natural poise, and her love for simplicity that redefined what it meant to be chic. Her fashion sense was iconic, yet so refreshingly simple. Think about that little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's. It became the blueprint for timeless elegance. Audrey knew how to turn basic pieces like capri pants, ballet flats, and tailored shirts into something extraordinary. She didn't follow trends. She created them. And the best part? Her style felt accessible. Women everywhere could look at Audrey and think, I can do that too. There was no need for over-the-top gowns or flashy jewelry. Audrey could make a pair of flats look just as glamorous as a pair of heels. Her signature accessories like oversized sunglasses and pearl earrings were the perfect finishing touch. Classic, understated, and forever in style. But Audrey's elegance wasn't just about clothes, it was how she carried herself. With a background in ballet, she moved with the kind of grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Whether she was walking into a room, dancing on screen, or simply sitting down, every movement had a dancer's fluidity. She never seemed hurried or awkward. Her poise was natural, like it was built into her very DNA. Even when she wasn't trying, Audrey stood out. There was something magnetic about the way she blended simplicity with sophistication. She could be surrounded by the flashiest stars in Hollywood, and yet all eyes would inevitably turn to her. She didn't need sequins or loud colors to shine. Her quiet confidence did that for her. And that's the magic of Audrey Hepburn. Her elegance wasn't something she put on, it was something she was. Her style, her poise, and her effortless grace were a reflection of the beauty she carried on the inside. Simple, timeless, and unforgettable. The soul of an angel. What really set her apart was the kind of person she was on the inside. She had this warmth and genuine kindness that seemed to radiate from her. Men weren't just drawn to her looks. They admired the way she carried herself, how she treated others, and the compassion that shined through in everything she did. First off, Audrey was humble. Think about it. Here was someone who was one of the most famous women in the world, yet she didn't let it go to her head. Even with all the awards, adoration, and paparazzi, she stayed grounded. Audrey wasn't the type to boast or flaunt her success. Instead, she was soft-spoken and approachable. There's this story about how she once apologized to her co-star, William Holden, for feeling nervous during a scene. It's not the kind of thing you expect from a global icon, but that's who she was. Her compassion was just as impressive. Audrey didn't just talk about caring for others, she lived it. After stepping back from Hollywood, she dedicated much of her life to working with UNICEF, traveling to some of the world's most difficult places to help children in need. She wasn't just lending her name to a cause. She was on the ground, meeting people, listening to their stories, and doing everything she could to make a difference. You could tell it wasn't for show. She genuinely cared. That kind of empathy made her beauty even more remarkable. Then there's how her co-stars and friends described her. People always talk about her thoughtfulness. For example, on set, she'd remember small details about people, like what their favorite snack was or if they had a sick family member, and make a point to check in on them. She had this way of making everyone around her feel special and seen, whether they were a big-name director or a production assistant. But what made her most captivating was her quiet confidence. Audrey didn't need to demand attention or dominate a room. She just naturally drew people in with her calm, graceful presence. It's that kind of confidence that's magnetic. It makes you want to know her, be near her, and learn from her. All of these qualities, her humility, compassion, thoughtfulness, and quiet confidence, made Audrey so much more than a pretty face. She was a rare kind of beautiful, the kind that left an impression long after she left the room. Audrey, and her sharp wit. Men admired her not only for her elegance but also for how effortlessly she combined intelligence and humor. She wasn't just someone you wanted to look at. She was someone you genuinely wanted to listen to. Audrey had this natural ability to hold a conversation that felt both meaningful and engaging. She wasn't one to dominate a room with loudness, but when she spoke, people paid attention. She had a way of expressing herself that was thoughtful and eloquent, yet completely approachable. Whether discussing art, life, or even cracking a light-hearted joke, she made everyone feel comfortable. She wasn't pretentious or overbearing, just effortlessly charming. Her humor, too, was a big part of her appeal. Audrey had this playful, almost cheeky sense of humor that made her even more magnetic. It wasn't forced or over the top. It was subtle and perfectly timed, the kind of humor that left you smiling and wanting to hear more. You can see glimpses of it in her interviews and even in her movies. There's a twinkle in her eye, a lightness to her personality that made her so relatable. What really set her apart was how she balanced everything so gracefully. Audrey was strong and intelligent, but never intimidating. She could be elegant and sophisticated, yet still approachable and warm. It's that rare combination of qualities, being polished without being distant, that made her so captivating. For many men, it wasn't just her beauty or grace that drew them in. It was how she made them feel. She could make anyone feel like the most important person in the room, not by trying to impress them, but simply by being herself. Audrey was proof that intelligence, wit, and kindness are just as alluring as physical beauty. In fact, they're what made her unforgettable. Her amazing voice. Audrey Hepburn's voice was pure magic, soft, melodic, and utterly unforgettable. It wasn't the kind of voice that boomed or demanded attention. Instead, it drew you in, gentle and soothing, like a warm breeze on a quiet afternoon. Her tone carried a natural refinement that felt perfectly in sync with her graceful personality. What made her voice so special was its unique blend of calmness and charm. It wasn't loud or overpowering, but it had this quiet strength that made every word she said feel meaningful. Whether she was delivering lines in a movie or speaking in an interview, there was something mesmerizing about the way she spoke. It felt like she was sharing a little piece of herself, with every word carefully chosen and delivered with care. For men, this voice was captivating because it matched everything else about her. Audrey wasn't about flash or excess. She was about subtlety, elegance, and grace. Her voice carried those same qualities, wrapping her words in a kind of melodic calmness that was impossible to ignore. It was the kind of voice you could imagine hearing in a dream, gentle yet commanding your full attention. And it wasn't just the tone, it was the way she used it. Audrey's voice had a warmth that made you feel instantly at ease, like she was speaking directly to you, even if it was through a movie screen. She could make even the simplest phrases sound poetic, adding layers of meaning with her delicate delivery. Her voice was more than just another part of her charm. It was an extension of who she was. It reflected her elegance, her thoughtfulness, and her ability to captivate without ever trying too hard. Men were drawn to it because it wasn't just pleasant to listen to. It was a voice that lingered, staying with you long after the conversation was over. Her sense of style. As the star that she was, Audrey didn't just wear clothes, she owned them. She wasn't about following trends, she set them. Her style was all about simplicity, but somehow she made it unforgettable. Take that iconic black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's. On anyone else, it might have just been a nice dress, but on Audrey, it became a symbol of timeless elegance. It wasn't flashy or over the top, but the way she carried herself made it legendary, and it wasn't just on the big screen. Off camera, her style was just as chic. She was a huge fan of clean, tailored lines and classic silhouettes, nothing too fussy or loud. Those cigarette pants and ballet flats she loved? Absolute genius. They were comfortable, practical, and yet they looked impossibly stylish because Audrey wore them with such confidence. What really made her style special, though, was how accessible it felt. She wasn't dripping in jewels or drowning in layers of fabric. Her outfits were simple and elegant, and it made people feel like they could try it too. A little black dress, a crisp white shirt, or a pair of flats. It was all about the way she put it together, effortlessly chic without trying too hard. Audrey's style wasn't just about the clothes, though. It was how she wore them. She carried herself with so much poise and grace that everything looked good on her. Whether she was glammed up for a premiere or casually strolling through Paris, she always looked like she just belonged. And that's what set her apart. She proved that style isn't about showing off. It's about knowing who you are and letting that shine through. Her sense of humor. Hepburn had this low-key, playful sense of humor that made her even more endearing. She wasn't the kind of person cracking loud jokes or trying too hard to be funny. Instead, her humor was light, quick, and full of charm. It was the kind of humor that made people instantly like her. Take, for example, some of her interviews. She had this self-deprecating way of talking about herself that was both funny and completely disarming. Once, when someone asked her about her iconic style, she joked that she was just too lazy to wear anything complicated. It was such a simple line, but it gave everyone a glimpse of how down-to-earth she was. And it made people laugh because she was Audrey Hepburn. The idea of her being lazy about fashion was hilariously impossible. She also loved to poke fun at herself, especially when it came to her looks. Despite being one of the most stunning women in the world, she often joked about her big feet or how skinny she was. It wasn't in a negative way, it was in that I don't take myself too seriously kind of way that made people feel comfortable around her. Even on set, she had this playful energy that kept things light. During the filming of My Fair Lady, for instance, she was known to goof around when the cameras weren't rolling, making funny faces or joking with the crew. She didn't walk around acting like a diva, even though she easily could have. Instead, she brought this approachable humor to everything she did, which made people love her even more. And then there's her comedic timing in movies. Audrey's humor really shined in roles like Roman Holiday and Sabrina. She had this subtle, witty delivery that could make even a simple line feel clever. In Roman Holiday, when she tries to blend in as a normal tourist, her awkward attempts are both hilarious and completely charming. Audrey's humor wasn't just about getting laughs. It was about making people feel at ease. She had this magical ability to be elegant and funny at the same time, which is no easy feat. It's part of what made her so lovable. She was gorgeous and talented, but she didn't take herself too seriously. She knew how to laugh, especially at herself, and that made her all the more irresistible. She had an inner strength. Beneath that delicate appearance was someone who had been through some serious struggles and still came out on top, full of kindness and strength. During World War II, Audrey lived in Nazi-occupied Holland, and it wasn't some distant story for her. She lived through the worst of it. She was just a teenager, but she faced hunger, fear, and heartbreak on a daily basis. Food was so scarce that she had to eat things like tulip bulbs to survive. Imagine that. This future Hollywood icon, this symbol of beauty and glamour, digging into tulip bulbs just to get by. That kind of experience leaves a mark, but instead of becoming bitter, she became more empathetic. She also lost people she loved during the war, which is something that would break most of us, especially at such a young age. But Audrey didn't let it crush her spirit. Instead, she seemed to carry those experiences with a quiet strength. She knew how fragile life was, and it made her appreciate the little things even more. What's even more incredible is how she took that inner strength and used it to shape her career and life. Hollywood is a tough place, but Audrey handled it with grace because she'd already survived worse. When directors or producers wanted her to conform to their idea of what a leading lady should be, she stood her ground. She didn't fit the typical mold of a curvy bombshell, but she turned that into her superpower. She wasn't about to let anyone tell her what beauty should look like. Even later in life, when she became a UNICEF ambassador, you could see that strength shine through. She wasn't just lending her name to a good cause, she was out there in some of the toughest places in the world, helping kids who were going through their own hardships. She understood what it felt like to be vulnerable, and that's why she could connect with people so deeply. Audrey's grace wasn't just about the way she walked or talked. It came from everything she'd been through. She didn't wear her struggles on her sleeve, but they were there, quietly shaping her into the person everyone admired. Her resilience was the kind that didn't need to announce itself. It just radiated from her, making her beauty even more extraordinary. She spoke several languages. Did you know Audie was fluent in English, Dutch, French, Italian, and Spanish? She wasn't just coasting by with a few phrases. She could genuinely connect with people in their own language. This wasn't just a practical skill for her international stardom. It showed her curiosity and deep appreciation for different cultures. Her multilingual ability came naturally because of her unique upbringing. Born in Belgium, raised in the Netherlands, and later living in England and other parts of Europe, she grew up hearing and speaking different languages. It gave her this worldly, sophisticated vibe that wasn't forced. It was just who she was. And it wasn't just about speaking the words. It was the way she made people feel. Whether she was on set in Rome speaking Italian or addressing fans in Paris in French, she made an effort to communicate in a way that felt personal. That's rare, especially in Hollywood, where many stars stick to their comfort zone. Audrey was all about stepping out of hers to make others feel comfortable. Her fluency also added so much to her screen presence. Think of films like Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's. There's this subtle, effortless charm about her that comes from knowing the world isn't one size fits all. Her ability to flow between languages gave her an edge, especially in an era when Hollywood stars often came across as very American-centric. But it wasn't just about the glamour. When she worked with UNICEF later in life, her multilingual talent truly shone. Visiting countries where she could speak to children and their families in their own language added a level of connection that was incredibly powerful. It wasn't about her being a movie star, it was about her genuinely trying to understand and help. Audrey's gift for languages wasn't just a skill, it was a reflection of her open heart and mind. It showed her respect for others, her love of learning, and her ability to step into someone else's world and make them feel seen. That's not just remarkable, it's inspiring. Her magnetic personality. Audrey Hepburn had a kind of presence that was simply magnetic. She didn't rely on grand gestures or loud entrances to turn heads. She didn't have to. Her quiet confidence and graceful demeanor did all the work. It wasn't about demanding attention. It was about naturally drawing people in, making them feel like they were in the presence of someone extraordinary, yet approachable. What set her apart was the way she carried herself. Whether she was on set, at a charity event, or simply walking into a room, Audrey exuded an effortless elegance that wasn't intimidating but inviting. She didn't dominate conversations or steal the spotlight in an overpowering way. Instead, she had this rare ability to make everyone around her feel seen and valued. It was like she had a silent understanding of how to connect with people on a deeper level. Her co-stars often talked about this quality, Gregory Peck once said that Audrey had an enchantment and a radiance that made her unforgettable. Imagine being on a film set filled with Hollywood egos, and here's Audrey, calm, composed, and genuinely interested in others. It wasn't just her looks or talent. It was the way she made people feel like they mattered. Even in her movies, this magnetic presence translated perfectly. Think about Roman Holiday or Sabrina. She didn't play characters who bulldozed their way through life. Instead, her charm came from subtlety and a kind of vulnerability that made her relatable. Audiences weren't just watching a star, they were connecting with someone who felt authentic.